My name is Richard Matthews, and I'm doing a quick video testimonial for Dr. Wes Fox and his Total Body Peak Performance program, which is a program I'm currently going through myself. So in the interest of full disclosure, Dr. Fox and I are working together. We ended up doing a sort of a trade for my services for his. So I'm doing a lot of marketing and branding work for him, and he actually is putting me through his Total Body program over the course of the next 12 months. I'm about 3 months into the program with Dr. Wes Fox, and what I wanted to do is just share a little bit of what my story is like before and what it's like now, and sort of what the process is like working with Dr. Fox. So if you're looking at his programs, you might, sort of get an idea of what it is that he does. So the first the reason why I was interested in getting started with Dr. Fox when we were first introduced to each other was, via a mutual client of both of ours. And it was, I was in this place in my life, I just hit my mid-30s, and I have already started to notice some of the typical changes in your body that happen in your mid-30s, like, the reduction in testosterone and, some of the slowing of energy and some of those things. And, getting to the end of the day and not have, just wanting to hit the bed and sleep. And for me, I want to be in a place, I've got 4 kids right now. They're all 10 years and younger, and I want to be in a place where I am getting healthier as I age, not getting less healthy as I age. I want to be at a point where when I'm in my mid-40s and early 50s with my children in their teens, that I can keep up with them, that I can go on hikes, that my son won't be able to out-hike me because he's fitting in his teens and, I've let myself not take care of myself properly. So I was already interested in getting started on really focusing on my health and taking care of my nutrition and taking care of, the health and fitness aspects of my life, and really interested in optimizing performance, right? Optimizing performance for me physically. I like kayaking, I like hiking, I got kids to keep up with, and I run a couple of businesses and have team members I have to take care of and all sorts of stuff like that with business growth. So I want to be on the top of my game and getting better, right? And I could already tell just over the course of my life that my trajectory wasn't getting better. It was getting worse. Even though it was, I'm healthy and fit now, the trajectory was sort of like a downward curve. And that is why I was so interested in Dr. Fox's programs when we started talking about them. So one of the things that really struck me when we first started working together was his approach to health. Started off with really high-level testing. So the first thing we did was what they call molecular level blood testing, which I was just blown away by. And the difference, which he explained to me, is that most of your blood testing that is done in the U.S. for all sorts of health stuff is what they call levels testing, right? So they test your levels, your white blood cell count level and your red blood cell count level and your virus load count and parasite load count and whatnot, and all those things are like pass-fail, right? Where, if it was, whatever the count was, if it was supposed to be 100, if you're at right at 100 and 99 would be like you're ill, you would still get a green check mark, right? You would pass that check. And all the blood levels testing work like that. And what the testing that he does actually has to be done outside of the U.S. And they take your blood sample, they send them out. There's only, I think, 1 or 2 labs in the world that do the molecular level testing that he does, which is like a 500x look at every cell in your blood, right? And the cell wall quality and like the health levels of everything that's going on. And I was just blown away learning some of the stuff I learned from that testing, right? So if I had taken a regular blood test like you would get, I would have, I'm a healthy individual, I would have checked all the green boxes. But what it doesn't look at is it doesn't look at like the trends in your health. So it was kind of really one of those interesting things. When I did the blood test and you get all the you're waiting for the information to come back, I remember sitting there thinking, man, I feel like I'm about to find out that, like the day you're going to die kind of thing in the future, and how you're, whether or not you have cancer or propensity for cancer, stuff like that. It was kind of freaky, actually, to be waiting for that information. And then Dr. Fox got the results back, and we got on the phone and actually got to go over them. And it was actually really, really cool to see the kind of data that you can get from that type of testing. Learned things like, for myself, one of the things that I learned was most of my blood cells are like lemon ball shaped. They're supposed to be perfectly circular. And he was able to tell me what that meant and what kind of things were happening in my diet or in my life that would lead to having, slightly lemon drop shaped red blood cells, and how we can work to improve that. And he was like, one of the other things I learned was that like about 10% of my red blood cells are shaped like a bottle cap. So they got like spikes on them. And he's like that, he showed me what some of the causes for that were, and it's like some minor nutritional deficiencies here or there, or some, maybe some toxic overload from, just the environment and stuff that we live in today. And it showed me, that was one of the things that leads to having poor circulation in your fingers and your toes. And I've always had really cold hands and cold feet, something that my wife and I always laugh about it at night in bed, because I put my cold toes on her and she is always, freaking out about that. But it was really cool to sort of see the underlying health reason for those, and then learn that there's a cause for them and there's ways to fix them. And then it didn't stop there, right? So I learned a whole bunch of stuff about my actual blood counts, everything from testosterone levels to the shape of my blood cells, the health of the mitochondria in the blood cells, to learning things like my toxic load in my system, the parasitic load, the acidity load in my system, and where those are and what the trends sort of look like in my own body, which was really, really cool, and also gave me a lot of hope. It wasn't nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be, because what it did was it showed me that, hey, here's each of the things that are going on in your body right now, and the health issues that you're noticing happening in your life as you age, and how they can be curbed, like what the I don't know what you'd call it, the protocols you can put in place to actually change some of those things. And we started discussing those, and immediately started making changes in my life and in my habits based on that. But he didn't stop there, right? That was just one aspect of the testing. The next part of the testing that we did was a DNA test, where we could find out my body's sort of DNA makeup and how it responds to all sorts of different things. And so I actually have pulled up here on my computer, so I could do this testimony for Dr. Fox, the DNA results that we got back, because I just wanted to show these to you, because it was super, super cool. So up here on the screen, I've got this is like a 60-page document over here. And it has all sorts of things in it that are how my DNA and how my body is set up and how it responds to things. And it was really interesting to see how this impacted my life. And I could see these things already in my life. So like one of the first things on here is like hunger and satiety. And it says my hunger level is normal, but my satiety level is low. And what that means basically is that I don't feel hunger, and I don't feel full the way a normal person would. And the way that I've always sort of dealt with that is I end up not eating much, right? And it's just because I'm never really hungry, and it's really easy for me to skip meals because I don't have the normal hunger responses that most people do. And so that was really interesting for me to find out and go through on the rest of these things. And there's all sorts of stuff that I learned in here. And part of it here, like grain sensitivity, right? I have an increased risk for grain sensitivity to like whole wheat, soy, dairy, eggs, that kind of stuff. Come all the way down into things like sweet and snacking drive. I have typical sweet perception, normal snacking drive, and typical addiction risk. And pair that with the hunger and satiety thing, and basically what that means is I don't have a normal. I have a normal to low like snacking drive. I don't have a sweet tooth, so pretty much I can eat whatever I want and not really gain weight, which is it's an interesting combo. It also means that I tend to accidentally starve myself. So learned all sorts of things like that, and it keeps going, right? Learn everything like how your body responds to fats and monounsaturated fats and proteins and plant sterols, and my metabolism. I've got a higher than normal metabolism, a higher resting rate, which is something I already knew. The doctors have told me that when I was a kid, that I've got a high metabolism, which means I process food more quickly than normal. And then it goes through each vitamin and mineral and actually shows you your body's whether or not you have normal need or increased need for that. So like this is vitamin B12, and it's showing I have an increased need for vitamin B12 supplementation. Same thing with vitamin B6, and same thing with vitamin A. But what's interesting is like we get down to what was one of these that I found really interesting was vitamin E. is it says I have a decreased supplementation need and have a higher inflammation risk for ingesting vitamin E. And vitamin E has a lot of beneficial properties, and you can use it for skin and other things. But if I actually supplement with it and actually take vitamin E, it would increase my inflammatory response in my body. So it could actually cause damage. If I were to supplement regularly from now until my 50s, it would actually probably put me on the path for a heart attack, which is really interesting. So when it comes to vitamin E, I can use it topically, but if it's for any of the benefits that I might get by ingesting it, I'd have to look for alternative vitamins and minerals to get those benefits. Really interesting thing, stuff that I never would have known if we hadn't done this level of granular testing. It goes all the way into everything from your circadian rhythms. Found out that I have no preference, which means I can be a morning person or a night person and switch it sort of at will. And it's something that I've noticed in my life. When I was in high school, I had a very morning schedule. In college, just because of the way that was, I was able to switch to having a night schedule really easily. When we had kids after getting married, I was able to switch back to a morning schedule pretty easily. So that's not a typical response. Most people have they're either morning persons or night people, and that's just the way that it is. So it was really interesting to sort of have confirmation that this stuff's actually in your DNA, and learning how it actually impacts your body. It goes on, talks about how much your sleep need is, what your quality of sleep looks like, whether or not you have risk of narcolepsy, risk of restless leg, which is the bouncing leg thing, which I genetically have an increased probability for that, and I bounce my leg all the time when I'm working or when I'm sitting. It's sort of like a fidget response. I do that all the time, and get us all the way down into looking at your mitochondria health and your mold sensitivity, and whether or not you're at increased risk for Lyme disease, and toxins and mercury health impact. Of course, this stuff is, most people would have a high impact from mercury, but it gets into your VO2 max, which mine is strong, and your VO2 max cardiovascular, which is less optimal, and metabolic, which is strong, and muscle fatigue ability, which is low, and recovery, which is strong or above average. And what that sort of means for me is that I'm never really going to be a power athlete. I'll always be sort of a long distance or endurance athlete, which is something I've known for a long time. But it's really interesting to see that it's actually part of my genetics to have that strong endurance capability where, I like to do 10, 15, 20 mile hikes. And because I recover so quickly, I can hike all day, and the next day my legs won't even be sore, right? They'll be sore all through the evening, but by the next day they recover pretty quickly. And it was just really cool to see these things come in and be a part of my genetics. And it just keeps going, right? There's 60 pages of this stuff for my genetic baseline. And then what we did from there is Dr. Fox put together custom protocols for my health, right? So one of the first things that we did together was the blood test actually indicated that I had higher than normal toxic load in my system. And part of that was because I had a chronic strep throat in high school and in college, and was on antibiotics multiple times a year. And come to find out, your body a lot of times will just take the antibiotics after your systems use them and wrap them up in these little fatty balls and store them in your liver. Same thing with acetaminophen and other drugs, and just normal toxins that you run into in your everyday life. They get stored in your liver. So the first thing that we did was a liver cleanse. Wasn't particularly pleasant, but it was the first thing that we did, was a liver cleanse. I'm currently in the middle of doing a parasite cleanse to bring those levels back down to normal. And we're looking at the next thing we're doing is a gut microbiome rebuild. That's going to help rebuild a lot of stuff that happened from the 15 years or so that I spent having antibiotics pushed in my system every year for strep throat, and rebuilding some of that. And then we're going to start getting into how we do performance fitness, and then getting into brain hacking and some of those things to make my mind more capable than it is now, which is all really cool stuff. And I've been really excited to go through this stuff. And some of the things that we learned really early on, we did a food log and food journal to see what I was eating and how I was eating it. Found out that I was actually eating less calories by about 600 to 1,000 calories less than I should have during the day, based on my metabolic rate and my current activity levels and stuff like that. So found out that I had to start increasing my food intake and cleaning up the food intake a little bit. And I already noticed some dramatic impacts in my life because of that, which is really cool. And I already started some of the basic supplementation for, just filling in some of the gaps for nutritional deficiencies that we saw in the blood work and in the genetics. And all of that's really cool. And we're only 3 months into this, and I've already seen some dramatic impacts in the way my health is going and what is sort of happening in my life. And I can already see just in how my body is responding that we're changing that. I might have been on a slow downward trajectory, which would have put me in my 50s or 60s in a not healthy position, where we're starting to flatten that line and hopefully changing it. So I'm actually going to be getting healthier by the end of the year and can continually get healthy into my my late 30s and 40s and 50s with my children and with my business, and be able to continue to increase my performance instead of decrease it. So anyways, if you are considering getting into a new health program or taking the next year to really work towards having just a completely different model for your health, I highly recommend working with Dr. Fox and taking a look at his programs. He just put together his first group coaching program, which is a little bit different than the one-on-one program I'm going through with him. But it's super cool because it's not nearly as expensive. That program is geared towards high-performance athletes and high-performance entrepreneurs. So it's expensive. And the people who know they want that, and they actually want to get into that. But we put together a program for sort of the everyday worker, everyday mom or dad who really wants to take their health to the next level, and that's his total body group coaching program. And I think if I have Dr. Fox's permission to do this, I'm going to put a link to that program in this testimonial on my page here, so you can see that. I don't have any compensation with Dr. Fox for that. It's just something I want to do because I really enjoyed this program myself, and I know I've talked to a lot of my friends and family about the program I'm going through with him, and I've been really excited about it. And I'm really excited that Dr. Fox put together a program that would be a fit for a lot of my friends and family who are interested in taking their health to the next level, and really getting to a peak performance level in their lives. So this program's a lot more affordable because it's a group program, and you get to have access to a lot of the same things, right? The DNA testing will be in there, the blood testing will be in there, and you'll be able to go through the protocols on your own to improve all the different things that I've been talking about for myself. You can do for yours, and it'd be custom built protocols for your health situation and your DNA and your blood. So it's really, really cool. Anyways, I'm super excited about my growth in this program with Dr. Fox. My program with him is I've still got another nine months or so to go. So I'll check back in and let you guys know what's been going on. But I really look forward to hitting some of my health goals, everything from fitness to nutrition and other things, by the end of this year, and seeing how that affects my performance, both in my business but in my life. And anyways, that is, I think, it for this testimonial video. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and God bless, and keep your health number one priority.